Yo, fellow Carfighter, this is Blaster Mez with a new deck profile. This one is going to be on the Jewel Knights. Because Jewel Knights are now going to be seeing more play, probably just for fun. Because of this new Stride unit, Climax Jewel Knight, Lowered Evangeline. You're going to definitely probably see it at your locals. Maybe see it at regionals this year. Wouldn't be a surprise if somebody played it. I'm going to definitely give you the cheaper options because if you can't get your hands on Swords Me's, of course, you can't get your hands on Ashley because they're too expensive right now. And I also seen some of the fluctuating prices on the cards, like Swords Me went up to $30, just shooting up like crazy. Don't be too stunned of not trying to bait the deck, but you can still make one that's competitively well. Alright, so let's get to this deck profile. First, this deck is definitely running at least crit wise 10 crit. Why 10 crit so deep? Because all you just need is just 10 crit, because you're going to be or attacking Vanguard first. Depending on when your opponent says no guard, you're going to be stacking damage just easily. Depending on when they decide to not guard a Vanguard attack. Next, of course, 4 heal, 2 draw triggers. I actually feel that 2 draw triggers are just fine in deck. If you want to amp it to 3, I would say that wouldn't be a bad option at all. And if you're definitely doing this on the budget end, starter wise, it's of course up to your own discretion. I would use Tiffany because it seems like the better option for putting it in the soul, and then you can have a empty space behind the Vanguard if you need to play anything like playing a Symbolin, of course. Next on the Grey 1 lineup, of course, 2 Symbolin are here. You can always change that to 3. Perfect guard is going to be Holy Knight Guardian because if you need to countercharge, you're definitely going to want Guardian. It's a good option, or if you want to, you could just use Jewel Knight Assault. It's still, regardless with Jewel Knight Assault, you at least get the consistency of if it goes to damage, it's a Jewel Knight. You don't have to worry about counterblasting for a Jewel Knight. Next is calling Jewel Knight Christine. Well, since she's the only one that doesn't have to worry about using a Jewel Knight to counterblast, I believe she's the only one. Uh, yeah, she's the only gray one that you don't have to worry about counterblasting for. To use her effect, you just counterblast 1, reveal a grade 3, and call a grade 3 rearguard. But of course, you have to have 3 other in rearguard to use that effect. So keeping her at 2 is not a bad option because you shouldn't have to have a pack full deck full of it. It does equal the consistency of getting the effect off, but if you can't get the board on the field, you shouldn't have to worry about using it anytime early. Next, 2 Sabomi is more prior to me, um, better, but using 1 is fine too because of the odds of it coming to damage. It depends. Using 2 would be better option just in case if you lose it in damage, you at least can get it back. Otherwise, you always get right into limit break anytime. Um, Next, 3 Jewel Knight Shelly because you need that little gray one that could be a 10k beat stick. And if you get, of course, Bartran in hand and you have enough units to call on field, you could throw the Bartran on the field there, boost it, boost Shelly with it, so that way Shelly's swinging for 14, and then at the end turn, he could just go back to the top of deck after you draw a card and put him on the top deck and shuffle. Um, then we hit the great twos. It's going to be Fellowship Jewel Knight Trace because she's just the good generic 12k attacker on field when you have enough Jewel Knights on the board for effect. Even though Jewel Knight Olin would be better because he's just live automatic, you want the higher attack pressure. And this is going to be the only other oddball card you're going to run in the deck because there's 2 oddball cards that, well, 3 oddball cards that won't be Jewel Knight units. Starlight Violinist because he can counterblast, soul blast, and call a grade 2 to field. You'll definitely need it to use with Tilda because you use him on your grade 2 right turn, make a Tilda. Whether you need it in front, rear, or back, you could put it in front, rear if you want. And then after that, just keep her on the field and protect her. The only decks that are going to be a problem with that, having her on the field, is going to be, of course, Kagero, Narukami, Nubatama if they get their binding unit out that could bind it, and Joker. Otherwise, if she comes out on the field and you can protect her during your next turn where you can ride your grade 3, you're going to get that counterblast and call your next unit. Now, I only have one Sybil in this deck. As much as I hate this card, she is the only Jewel Knight I can't stand because she is pretty much High Beast Breeder Akane. Only difference is she's a Jewel Knight. That's it. That's the only thing that separates her. She's a Jewel Knight, and her ability is on Vanguard Rear Guard. Her ability actually doesn't require having a Jewel Knight for counterblast, so I was wrong. There's going to be, of course, a couple of those that don't require Jewel Knight and counterblast, but it's a good thing she isn't. Um, Blooming Jewel Knight Camille is definitely going to be the main boss monster you definitely want for this deck because of her main phase. Just like if you get your right grade 3 ride, your opponent's still on grade 2, you can just ride her. And of course, if sorry, still kind of a little sick here. If you have Tilda out, you're going to be able to counterblast one, make a unit with Tilda, and since you have 3 or less Jewel Knights on board, you just counterblast one with her during your main phase and call a unit. And that's only, of course, at the beginning of your main phase you can get to do that ability, so you got to remember, beginning your main phase, counterblast one, call another unit, so you could call any grade 2, grade 3 if you needed to, just to pack up the field a little bit. And then next you're going to have Jewel Knight Salome because she's the only other better grade ride option. If you decide to use as your starting unit, and you're not going to go with Tiffany, you're going to go Heloise. Heloise at least will back her up and become an 8K when you get the packed field, so that way you're attacking with a consecutive 20 on her limit break. Otherwise, you can still go ahead, use Tiffany, give 2 rear guards 3K, call a 7K unit, and you're going to be attacking at least for 19. That's still pretty good. If you hit triggers, you're hitting 29. If you give her the 3K off of Tiffany's effect, you at least could make sure you're hitting higher than that. Because, okay, I'm wrong. You can't do that with Tiffany. If that worked that way, that would have been amazing. Then it's like, okay, put Tiffany in Soul, give it 3K to Salome and 3K to another rear guard. But I was wrong. But otherwise, it's pretty good pressure. The last oddball, of course, is going to be Laurel Knight Sisylis. Just because he's going to be the stride fodder that you need. Then your extra deck, you're just going to have, of course, 3 Climax Jewel Knight Lord Evangeline, because her ability is equivalently Sanctuary Guard. It just requires her unflipping and copy herself in the G zone, and it goes out pretty much about the same if you get her at 3 face up. You usually will have with Sanctuary Guard. If you have 4 grade 1s on the field with Sanctuary Guard, you're maxing out 12K in the front row. She at least gives 6K per unit to each unit, so that each column will have 12K added. So it works on end. You could always, of course, go 4 deep with her, making it 18K a column. That's the only difference between her and Sanctuary Guard. She advancedly, every stride turn you use her, goes up, which is only 2 turns, so it takes 2 turns just to flip up her more than once to get at least about 3 copies of her, so she's going to give plus 9K out after that. It's not as great as Sanctuary Guard, even though he could do 15 longs, you have 5 grade 1s in the rear guard. It's still pretty decent. Your other stride unit is going to be, of course, Samuel, because he's at least decent when you need that final bit of push and you want your opponent to go back to 5 damage if they were off 5 damage because they healed last turn, or one attack just gave them a heal. That at least puts pressure and forces a higher heal. The blade, because you may need the option if you can't get your hands on alt mile, which I would suggest alt mile more. If you could get 2 soaring divine knight alt miles, put those in that. You just need 2. So that way, the next turn after you stride it from Evangeline, because that should be your first stride, you go into alt mile. Alt mile can make a guy, and then that next card that you just called should be able to make a guy. So you go like, okay, stride, make alt mile. Alt mile's a skill. Go into a Starlight Violinist. Starlight Violinist makes a grade 2. Or you can use it to go into Sybil if you haven't hit Sybil yet. Then use Sybil to make a grade 1. That works too, either way. But at least is an advancing play that works. Then you go to Rain Element Madu, because if you have Salomon Vanguard, you can just get your Stride Fodder grade 3 that you dumped off that turn to Stride for her back to hand, and it just is a resupply. Last card is Snow Element Blizzard, just to be that big hit if you need that one turn to swing in heavy, because you couldn't make any more Evangeline and you just needed a bigger attack than Alt Mile, or if you already did Alt Mile ability too, and since you don't have Saints Blow, if you don't have it, which is the other better option, you could go with Blizzard. Just go, okay, Blizzard, swing with high amount attack, hope for the criticals, put the final nail in the coffin. And that's pretty much the deck profile on a cheaper end. Blizzard might not be that cheap, so I may be wrong on that, but I believe Evangelines are going to be dropping slowly because it's just an easy card to get, and it should be flooding the market completely by now. So if it's not no longer $15 from after dropping from 20 something dollars, it should be at least out $10. And till next time, hopefully you guys enjoyed the profile. Make sure you like, share,